Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Analytics Mindset. In this case, we're going to go back into databases and go into the case when clause. Case when is a very powerful clause that can do a lot of stuff, and it goes well beyond the select the right columns video that I did some time ago, and it's going to be somewhere over here. You can also go through my database basic series if you want to learn more about it. However, without wasting any more time, we will start going through this. We will use the houses table that we have been using multiple times for databases. I added some data here and there, but it's pretty much the same as previous videos. And we will use the case when clause. This is all going to be almost exclusively on case when, why do you use it, how do you use it, and a lot of all that stuff like that. Like we have done multiple times, but just to rephrase, we are going to use the statement create table to create the houses table in our database if we don't have it already. As you can see, there is already an object houses in my database. However, I can just drop it. This is from last time. And I'm going to recreate it just to show it. After that, I'm going to set these values. This, what actually does is I have a table, it's empty, it's not very useful. Therefore, I'm going to insert some data into my table. Yes, to my conclusions. In theory, I could add stuff here instead of doing case when stuff by just adding a column here or adding different scenarios or different data. However, assume that you don't have access to this. In most real world scenarios where you are going to be retrieving data from a database, you don't have access unless you are the DBA. You will get a table, you cannot edit a table. You can query the table, you may have additional permissions depending on your role, depending on your seniority, etc. It's very uncommon for you to be able to actually create the table, manipulate the database at the level that I'm doing here. This is more for demonstration purposes. Assume this is impossible to change. You get this data, you are asked to do the stuff that you want to do. We get 15 rows, as you can see. And I have already talked about this data before, but this is just some housing data. Don't take it with a grain of salt. I came up with the numbers out of nowhere. And some quick definitions in case you are not familiar with it. You can pause the video here if you want, but street, state, price, price date, year since construction, down payment, and year since renovation are gonna be our main columns here. Now, case when is usually used to create a derived column based on other conditions, very similar to how we did the derived columns in the select clause. It's very similar. However, case when allows us to do way more stuff than that. As you can see here, I'm doing a select all, so select me all the columns. Then case when, that's how you open this command. And I'm going to say, when the owner ID is null, you're going to create a column, and then you're going to put the value no owner on file. Else, if this is not true, so if owner ID is not null, that you don't need to specify, but that's what SQL is doing. Say owner is registered, and then you're going to end this as owner flag from houses. You can see here how it's exactly the same as it will do with the select star clause, where you get all the columns here. However, we have this owner flag here. That's the new stuff. That's the new stuff that we can use here. And that's our owner flag. Again, you may feel like, well, I could have do the where clause and just filter whatever it was like that. Yes, you could. But let's say that you want to actually see, maybe you're not working with 15 rows only. You're working with millions of rows or hundreds of thousands. You are not going to be looking at each of them. And if you need all the data, this is probably the best way to do it. Now, you can do a lot more with case when. But again, just to go a little bit more over the syntax, you start by opening case when. This is what opens it. Then the condition. This is the condition here. Then you're saying, then you're going to need to put a value. The else clause says, if this is not true, do this instead. And finishes the case when, and this as owner flag is just an alias. So I could get rid of this if I wanted to. Let's run this again. And you can see I have exactly the same thing. I just don't have the name. So that is not mandatory at all. Now, this is a simple expression. It is, again, if you want to go again through my brief explanation about the syntax, feel free to, but this is a very simple syntax here. We can expand into it, and we are going to do it. And it's going to become way, way more complicated, and that's going to explain why we need the case when clause. So here you can see something very useful, actually. We have one single expression here where you're saying owner ID is null. That's all I want to know. But what if I want to know if any of these any of these columns is null? We can expand it and make it way more complicated. We are going to create a new flag. So our new flag is going to be called null flag. And whenever any column is null, it's going to give me the value missing information. If nothing is null, then it's going to return me no missing information. Here you can see, for example, we have this one saying missing information because it is missing years since renovation. That's the most where it's missing most information. Then you have these ones here that also are because of years since renovation. But then you have this record 12 that is missing owner ID. And that's the reason why it says missing information. It is not missing information here, but here. What this is doing here with the OR clause that, as we will remember from the where video that I did, that I also will put somewhere here if you want to go back to Boolean logic and learn a little bit more about it. OR says if this or this is true, whichever of the two is true. In this case, you are saying make a condition. You are evaluating one condition only, but that condition is made up of all the columns being evaluated over and over again. So first I'm saying owner ID, then street, state, price, price date, D, etc., etc., etc. After all of that has gone through this, then I'm going to go as finishing no null flag. And it's basically looking at every single column and seeing, is there any nulls there? Yes or no? And you can see here there are nulls. So we can use those nulls. Now, if you have a programming background, you may realize this is not that very different from if-else decision tree. And that's because that's exactly what it is. Case when is nothing more than if-else conditions. Let me rewrite this because I did make a mistake there. If-else statements executed in order gives us way more flexibility to work with our data. In this case, we're going to go through a little bit of a more complicated example, and actually I do recommend you to look over it and try to do it yourself if you can. I would pause the video if I were you, read these instructions and try to do it yourself. I'll give you 2 seconds if you want to do that. All right, so going back into this, we're going to say that we want a new column, and it's first going to say if a house is in California. So state is equal CA, that's pretty standard. Then if it's affordable, and then if it's new. What's affordable? We are making it 700,000 just because. We could have chosen any other single rank. I will just say this value for this. And then if it was built or renovated during the last 6 years, I'm going to call it new. This is going to look a little bit more different than the previous case ones. What we're going to do is select everything from the table because why not? Then after that, I'm going to say case when the state is in CA, so California, then you're going to say California house. When the price is less than this value, then say affordable house. When the years since construction or the years since renovation is less or equal to 6, then say new house. Else say other house, and then finishes as house flag. If you have a programming background again, this will be very easy for you to follow up. It is just an if-else decision tree, and you evaluate each condition and then the following condition until you get to the else clause. If you do not have a programming background, bear with me, I will explain it as best as I can. We start with all the records. Imagine that they are empty. This house flag column is empty. You start by identifying the California houses. There is only 2 of them here, as you can see. You have this California house here and this California house over here. Those are the first ones being evaluated. That means your SQL is gonna check in order, because this is the first condition that you gave SQL, and say California house. So only 2 of them are evaluated there. Then, when that's not true, it's going to jump to the second one. The second one, if the price is less than this. So that's gonna be affordable house. As you can see here, there is 1 here and 1 here. So that's 2 affordable houses there, right? Yeah, that's 2 affordable houses. Then whatever is not true of that, you're going to evaluate another condition after that one and say years since construction is less or equal to 6, or the years since renovation is less or equal to 6. And that's going to be new house. As you can see here, this one is a new house. This one is also new house here. And else, if nothing is true, put other houses. That's what the else condition does, and that's what you get there. And you are going to call this house flag. Now, why do I say in order? The order matters here. As you can see here, this house was renovated 6 years ago, and it was cataloged as new house. But this one here was also renovated 6 years ago, but it says affordable house. The reason is because affordable house is being evaluated, the price is less than this point, before we decide if it's a new house or other houses. You are evaluating that based on the conditions, taking the first one, then the rest is put into the next bucket, then the rest is put into the next bucket, etc. If you want to a little bit more on the technical explanation of this, you can go into decision trees. That is a very interesting topic by itself, but I don't want to bore you with the theory. For applied SQL, the order matters. You are taking that condition in case when, then passing it to the next when, passing it to the next when, whatever was not true for the previous condition. And that's the reason why you have affordable house there and not new house, even though it is a new house. And we could have added the condition there to say affordable and new house, but again, that will overcomplicate this very introductory video. I hope that was clear there. We are going to go into a little bit more detail in the case when clause, because you cannot only use it in the select clause. You can also use it in other places. In this case, we're going to use it in the where and other by clauses. Why would I use case when in an or a where clause? Well, you would use that when you need to filter something specific in a conditional way. You are creating a condition, and we want to use that condition instead to filter it through. We don't need to return the select clause, and I will show that actually later, but I'm going to put it here for demonstration purposes. Here you can see I have my house flag that we just talked about before, and I'm putting into my where clause. So parentheses, and then I'm saying it needs to equal other houses. So just return me whatever is left here. I'm going to take all of this. And you can see I only get 3 of them. Now, let me go back and do only without the where clause, do what we did before. As you can see here, there is only 3 other houses. Other houses, other houses, other houses. What we are doing here is filtering out the previous conditions. And yes, you could make the argument that this is mostly the same as doing the OR condition, but it allows you to do it in a more programmatic way. You are routing by each condition independently instead of doing the OR condition. The OR condition would have been like, okay, anything that is a California house or affordable or etc. It may have excluded some of these because if we did all full ORs, even though here is not shown, let's say we had an affordable California house. That I don't think that will happen, but you know, if we had one, then it may have ended up as other houses, let's say, because the conditions are not true, but it may have still been excluded if we put or, because or will get rid of everything. This is more easier to understand when you have conditions that overlap each other. You are basically saying, take out this, take out this, take out this, and then give me what's left. If you do the last one, you could also have done new houses, for example, or affordable houses, etc. Case when gives you a lot more flexibility onto that, onto your workflows. How can you filter stuff? How are you going to filter it? Do we want to give it an actual value, etc.? It allows you to control it to a more granular, a more detailed level that you will be able to do it without overcomplicating yourself. Again, that's well beyond the scope of this video, but yes, you could do a lot more with case when, especially on the where clause. You could set it up to a specific one, and it just allows you more control than the or and and statements in SQL give you. Although, again, you might be able to do the same with the or statement depending on your case, and it's very good to know that case when can be slower than using and or depending on your data, how your table looks, even no kidding, your database engine sometimes case when may outperform some other functions, as funny as it sounds, even though you're writing a full condition then. But it is one more tool for your toolkit to be able to analyze data, pivot data, and be able to just use data more in a better way. Now let's do order by. We are going to give priority to records without null. So we are sorting. We could have sorted other ways, don't get me wrong, but we're going to do it this way. I'm going to say order by this condition, and then missing information, no missing information, and then descending. So as you can see here, basically everything went in and the nulls were put at the end. Now I'm going to do what I said I was going to do and get rid of the case when here in the select clause. I'm going to execute this again. And I forgot to delete this too. As you can see here, I order it still, but I don't have the case when in the select clause. I don't need to have it there in order to be able to order it by or filter it by that matter. You can do a lot more with the case when clause. For a matter of fact, a lot of times you could also do the case when in the select and then passing it to another table if you had the permissions to write a table, and it's usually faster than doing this method. However, again, if you are, let's say, a data analyst that can only read tables and you cannot write any tables, this will be useful for you to be able to order or filter stuff on a more granular way that you will be able to do it regardless of your conditions. This is a very simple example, but again, you could do a lot of other conditions. As long as SQL accepts it, you could do a lot of other conditions that will help you improve your queries dramatically too. And the last operation that we will do is drop the houses table. As you can see, case when is a very powerful statement. It is one of the most, it's on the more complex side of SQL statements because you can do a lot with it. This is where a lot of people will say that SQL is a programming language. I do not, because there is some formal definitions that I adhere to, besides some other SQL dialects that do. But as you can see, you can do a lot on the control flow, on the more formal way, on how you treat variables and how you treat data. And you could do whole ETL pipelines. You could be like case when this and this, then create a flag based on that flag, pass this to this table. Again, if you have permissions to write tables, and pass this to this table. Or you could do SQL queries that extract that flag. And that way you can route stuff through automated processes. Just an idea. But case when does allow you to expand a lot on this select clause. And in general, any part of the SQL statements can use the case when statement when you need a more programmatic / conditional way of routing stuff, where you are going to say, based on these conditions, do this with these values, and you are doing multiple conditions that now will be true, false, null, not null, etc. And with that being said, I'm going to finish the video here today. Again, I would love any criticism, any comments. Leave a like if this was useful for you, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.